So the art of allowing is about reminding you so that you can deliberately, consciously reconnect with that stream of energy first and foremost. If you will tend to your connection with your stream, everything that you desire will flow easily into your experience. So we want to make a distinction today, as we are chewing back and forth with you, about the difference between the action journey that so many of you have been embarking upon as you have attempted to control the conditions of your experience. And we want you to begin to gently shift over to an awareness and an application of what we are calling the emotional journey, which means nothing is more important than that I feel good. And every effort that I make is toward helping me align with the energy of my source. Now, sometimes people say, oh, Abraham, you're trying to teach people to feel good. Won't you teach them to feel good? And won't them feeling good then jeopardize the rest of us? And we say, not even possible. It is not possible for someone to align with source energy and then evoke or wreak havoc upon the rest of you. It just doesn't happen. You don't do mean things from your place of connection. From your place of connection, you feel secure. The only time we ever see anyone acting out in some sort of revenge is from a vibrational standpoint of fear or from a standpoint of vulnerability. You don't behave in those ways when you are secure, and when you are connected to who you are secure. You know your value, and you don't just set out to prove your value by mowing over others, you see. So don't worry about the world becoming chaotic as more and more people rediscover their connection to who they are. The opposite will be true. As more and more people rediscover their connection to who they are, you will begin living, as so many of your teachers have taught, unconditional love. The emotional journey is about learning that you do not have to change the conditions. You just change your vibration, and then the conditions change. We want to begin by here making a distinction between the action journey that so many are attempting and the emotional journey, which will go ever so much better for you. We'll do a sales job all day here today until we have convinced you that the emotional journey is simple, easy to apply, and massively productive for you. So the action journey goes something like this. Here you stand in a place where you don't have enough money. Maybe there are more bills in your mailbox than you have money in your bank account. Maybe you are receiving calls from people who would like you to send the money to them that you owe them. Maybe you are just frustrated because there are many things that you want that you do not have the ability right now to purchase. Maybe you are just wanting more financial freedom, but you are standing in a place where you have identified that you don't have enough money. So the action journey goes something like this. Well, I don't have enough money, and I would like to earn more money, but I'm already at the top of my skill level, so I need more education. But before I get more education, I'd better try to figure out what the economy is asking for, and I'd better get futurist economists who can project down the road a little bit, because my education is going to take me a little while. So I need to figure out what the economy will be asking for at the end of my education. And once I find that person, well, maybe I better find several of them because they all think different things. And then I'll get a sort of team of them together, and I'll figure out what the future economy is asking for. And then I will set out to get the best education possible. I have to be careful that I find something that's sort of bent toward my skills, and I also have to figure out how to carve out time out of my experience now to go back to get this education. And I probably have to go into deeper debt in order to get the education that I'm going to need, and so I'll probably need some financing. So I have to find someone who I can convince that my futurists are right about what I am educating myself in, so that I will be prepared, and I have to convince them that I have the ability to stick to it, that I really will not waste this money. And so I will get my plan together, and then I will set out and I will find all of the people who will line up with me, and then I will find a school, and I have to find one that's close enough. Well, now I'm going to have to move because there is no school that is close enough to me that I will be able to work and go to school. And we say, oh, just shoot me now. Well, now you have the education, and now you have to go through this long sorting process, and you are applying yourself to many different institutions, and you are now having to convince them that you are the best one suited for what they are looking for. And even though you're quite old now, because it's taken you quite a while to get through all of this school, you have to convince them that you have many more good years in you, and you have to do a really good interview. And now they've hired you, and now they're not paying you hardly anything, because after all, this is a new entry job. And now you have to convince them that you are really worth more than they are offering you now. And well, in fairness, we have to say this is not the journey we recommend, so we're not putting it in the best light. But it is not too far from the way many of you are approaching this action journey toward the income that you will earn. Now, the emotional journey is a bit simpler. It goes like this. I have to move emotionally from fear to hope. How many people do you know have all the education in the world and can't manage to get in the right spot at the right time? And don't you hear them complaining? Don't you hear their frustration? Don't you hear them commenting on the injustices of the world? And we say, there are no injustices. There is only justice. Everything is always just. You just have to understand the rules. And the rule says, this is it, simply. The rule says, you can't feel bad and have good stuff come. That's the rule. The rule says you can't complain about what is and let something else in. Because when you're complaining about what is and you're beating the drum of that, you've activated that exactly as it is in your experience, and you're literally with a megaphone or more shouting to the universe and saying, I hate this in my experience, and please fill my future with more of it. That's what complaining does. It says, no, I don't like this. Give me some more, please. It's like going to a buffet, finding the most horrible thing by your estimation in the whole place and saying, load it on. And then eating it and complaining and eating it and complaining, and then going back and asking for more. The universe is not teaching you a lesson. The universe is not punishing you. Although you have surely become very creative about your explanation about why things aren't turning out the way you want them to. Sometimes you say, I inherited this bad karma. Sometimes you say, I was born into an environment where this is just my lot in life. Sometimes when you want to get very creative, you say, I must have been bad in a past life and now I'm paying the price for it. And we say, none of that is the case. What is the case every single time is that somehow you got focused, and we're not saying somebody else around you didn't show you how to do it, but you got focused upon something and you developed attitudes or opinions, you developed beliefs that do not serve you well. What's a belief anyway? A belief is just a thought you keep thinking. And so when you've decided that you're going to be one who takes the emotional journey, then you've decided that you're going to be one who tends to your vibration. That's all we're saying here. You're going to tend to your vibration. You're going to practice the art of allowing, and you're going to begin thriving in the moment you do it. Now, we want to talk about this a little bit, because there is an emotional scale that goes all the way from despair or depression all the way to ecstasy. And up here in the upper registries where appreciation is and love and joy, there is very little resistance. And here where there is fear and depression, there is more resistance. We want you to realize that your emotions are telling you all about your level of resistance. The better you feel, the less resistance. And what does less resistance mean? More allowing. Allowing resistance. So when you are practicing the art of allowing, you are practicing thoughts, whether it is past, present, or future. In other words, you're remembering, or you're anticipating, or you're observing things that make you feel good while you focus upon them. Now, there are many who say, but Abraham, this is a truth that I can't deny. And we say, yes, but you don't have to focus on it. And you say, well, I thought I did. I thought if something was true, then it deserved my attention. And we say, well, when you step back from as broad a view as we have, you realize that there are a whole lot of things that are true, that are wonderful, that you could focus on. Just like there are a whole lot of things that are true that are not so wonderful that you could focus upon. And when you've decided that the emotional journey is the path to your connection with Source, it is the path to all things that you want, it's the path to the fulfillment of who you really are, Then you begin to selectively sift through the past, through the present, even through what you're anticipating in the future, looking for things that feel good to you while you focus upon them. And in doing so, you learn to manage your vibrational output. When you focus upon something, whatever it is, wanted or unwanted, good feeling or bad feeling, when you focus upon it, you activate a vibration within you. Activate, very important word. If you do that often, you can make that often activated vibration a dominant vibration. And that's what a belief is. It's just beating the drum of something until it's the easiest place for you to go. So Joseph Campbell was talking about moving up the emotional scale, although he didn't use any of those words. He said, follow your bliss. And it was very wise in his offering to you, because he understood that if you are looking for things that make you feel blissful, there will be little or no resistance within your vibration. And in the absence of resistance, you're in the state of allowing, where all good things can flow to you. But the problem with just following your bliss is that sometimes from where you stand, you can't get a whiff of bliss. And when you attempt to find bliss from despair, because the vibration of despair is so different from the vibration of bliss, you can't hook into it any more than you can set your radio dial on 6:30 a.m. and hear what's being broadcast on 98.6 FM. The frequencies are different, and no matter how hard you try to listen with a tuner that's set at a different frequency, you're not going to hear the broadcast. Well, the broadcast of who you are is a non-resistant, pure positive energy, high-frequency vibration. The vibration of joy is a high-frequency vibration. And when you have, through trial and error, through observation of things unwanted, trained yourself into a vibration of pessimism, or into a vibration of unworthiness, or into a vibration of fear, now you don't have access to that vibration of well-being, and you have, in essence, pinched yourself off, too strong of word, diminished your connection to your source, and under those conditions you don't thrive. All illness, all headaches, all things unwanted are as a result of that state of being. So, when we talk about this emotional scale, we're talking about moving from despair up the emotional scale. Well, what's a step up vibrationally from depression or despair on the emotional scale? Anger. It's a step up. Have you ever been depressed? And did you not discover that sometimes even unconsciously you went right into anger? Now those around you didn't like it because they liked you better when you were depressed. You stayed in your room and you left them all alone. And when you're angry, you're sort of out there in everybody's face. But we want you to know that from a vibrational standpoint, anger is a healthier vibration than depression or fear. When you think about it, which would you rather be, afraid or angry? Now we know those are rotten choices, but if you had to choose between fear and anger, what would you choose? And the reason that you choose anger is because there is more personal perception of power in anger than there is in fear. So this is the next most important thing that we want you to understand about this emotional scale. This emotional scale that goes all the way from joy or appreciation or love all the way down to despair. In the appreciation, love, good feeling vibration, there is a perception by you of your power, your empowerment. And in the fear, in the despair, in the depression, there is a perception of disempowerment. When you think about it, isn't that the case? Don't those emotions that feel awful, isn't it a feeling of powerlessness? It's the reason so many people act out in their fear. They're trying to reclaim their power. And it's really interesting to watch some counselors or some teachers or even some parents who, when you are making the life-giving journey from depression into anger and you feel better and you're starting to get some of your power back, often they pounce on you and tell you how inappropriate your anger is. And we want you from now on, whether you say anything to them or not, we're not really encouraging a fight over it. But you could say to them, you should be in here where I am. And I got to tell you, this anger feels so much better to me than where I was. And I don't plan on staying here. I'm on my way to the life-giving breath of fresh air that frustration will bring me. But for right now, anger's as good as it gets for me. And it feels so much better than where I was that I'm going to milk it for a few days. So if you don't like it, stay clear. Now, the important thing about this moving up this emotional scale is you've done it on purpose. This may be the first time that you have deliberately reached for a thought because it felt better. You've taken your first step on the emotional journey. And it is our promise to you that once you begin doing this, you will move all of the way up into your place of connection.